Have you ever wanted more not because you needed it, but simply because more felt like safety? Have you ever stood at the edge of having enough and still felt a quiet hunger that refused to be satisfied? A voice that whispered that what you had was never quite sufficient? If you have heard that voice, even once, even in the small hours of the night when the house was quiet and everything looked fine from the outside, then this story was written for you. There is a kind of greed that does not look like greed at all. It wears the face of ambition. It calls itself prudence, foresight, responsibility. It tells you it is working for your family, building something for your children, securing the future. And because it uses the right words, you believe it. You let it make your decisions. You let it choose what you do with your evenings, what you do with your Sundays, what you do with the years that pass so quietly you barely notice them going. Today, I want to tell you the story of a man who gave everything to the pursuit of more, and the morning he understood what he had traded away. Stay with me until the end. What he discovered in the last chapter of this story may be the most important thing you will hear all year. There is a village in the green hills of an inland valley, the kind that does not appear on any important map. The hills around it are terraced. Centuries of hands have carved them into steps, and in the growing season, each step is a different shade of green. In the morning, the mist comes down from the high ground and sits in the valley until the sun finds the strength to lift it. And in that first hour of light, the whole world smells of wet earth and wood smoke, and something sweet from the mango trees along the southern road. In this village, in a house set back from the lane behind a wall of good stone, lived a man named Vikram. He was 43 years old, compact, with a face that might have been handsome if it had not been set so permanently into an expression of calculation. He owned land more than any other family in the valley, more than his father before him. He had good instincts, worked hard, and knew which plots the river would favor in a wet year and which the sun would bless in a dry one. He had a wife named Savitri, a woman of quiet intelligence and patient warmth, who had understood early in their marriage that there were two things in Vikram's life that would always come before her: his land and his plans for more of it. She had not accepted this bitterly. She had accepted it the way a river accepts a stone flowing around it. Finding other courses, she grew her garden. She raised their 3 children with a gentleness that everyone remarked upon, as though instinctively compensating for what their father could not give them, the quality of attention that does not calculate. Their eldest son, Arjun, was 17, with his mother's steady eyes and the habit of watching things longer than most people thought necessary. Their 2 younger daughters were 12 and 9, the sound of the house, laughter up the stairwell, someone always running somewhere. Vikram loved his family. He would have said this without hesitation, and he would have meant it. But love, when buried deeply enough under the daily press of acquisition, can become invisible, even to the one who feels it. The trouble began, as it so often does, with an opportunity. A land broker arrived from the city in the first month of the dry season. He spoke of investors, of development, of the wild plateau land beyond the eastern ridge, too far from water, too far from the road, and therefore worth very little now, except that a new road was coming. The broker said this carefully, as a man says a thing he knows will change the room. Vikram heard the words "new road" and felt something move in him that he recognized immediately. The window between now and when the road arrived was perhaps 18 months. He went home that evening and said almost nothing. And Savitri put food in front of him, and the children talked about their day, and none of it really reached him, because he was already on the eastern plateau in his mind, already counting. To buy enough land to make it worthwhile, he would need to borrow a great deal, against the fields he already owned, against the house, against everything. He lay awake that night for a long time. Savitri turned over beside him in the dark and said softly, "What is it?" He said, "Nothing. Go back to sleep." She said, "Is it the land beyond the ridge? How much of what we have would you risk?" He said, "Enough to make it worth doing." She was quiet for a moment. Then she said, "Vikram, we have enough. We already have enough." He heard this. He considered it, and then he set it aside the way a man sets aside something that is true but inconvenient. In the morning, he went to see the broker. Think about that for a moment. Have you ever had someone who loved you tell you a true thing and set it aside because you were not ready to hear it? The cost of that moment is sometimes small, and sometimes it is everything. The loan was arranged. The land was purchased. For the first 6 months, everything seemed to go as planned. Work began on the road. Reports from the city were favorable. Vikram was away from home more than before meetings in the district town, visits to the plateau, the complex work of managing a larger holding. He told himself this was temporary. He told himself that when the investment was realized, he would have time. Time for Savitri, time for Arjun, time for the girls, time for all the things that had been slowly pushed to the edges of his days. But the road was delayed. Not canceled, just delayed. For reasons that the official letters explained in language that was clear and meant nothing. 6 months became 12. 12 became 18. And then, the rains came. Not the ordinary rains that came every year. These were different, the kind that happened once in a generation. 3 of Vikram's terraced fields slid. Not destroyed, but gone for this season, and perhaps the next. And the harvest that was supposed to have come from them was not coming. He sat that evening and looked at the accounts, and the numbers that had been manageable were no longer manageable. He would need to sell something quickly. And when you need to sell something quickly, you never get what it is worth. He became someone different that season, quietly, without announcing it. He came home later. He spoke less. The dinners, that had always been at least physically shared, began to be missed. The girls stopped leaving spaces in their conversation for the father who was rarely there to fill them. Arjun began to look at him with an expression Vikram could not quite decode. Not anger, not resentment, something quieter and more difficult than either. Savitri said nothing for a long time. When she finally spoke one evening, when the girls were asleep, and Arjun had gone to his room, and they were alone in the kitchen for the first time in weeks, she did not accuse. She simply said, "I cannot remember the last time you were in this house and also here." He looked at her. She said, "You are always somewhere else." He said, "I am trying to save what we have," she said, and her voice was very quiet. "I am not sure what we have anymore." He did not answer. He turned to his account books, and this silence, this turning away, was the moment that everything began to crack, in a way that land can crack slowly, and then, all at once. Arjun left for his uncle's house in the northern town 2 weeks later. He said it was for work, an apprenticeship, a real opportunity. All of this was true, but Vikram understood, in the part of himself where understanding happens before language, that his son was also leaving, because home had become a place where the air was different, where the man who was supposed to be the center of things was always absent, even when present. Vikram sat with this for 3 days without speaking to anyone. On the 4th day, he walked to the edge of his plateau land and stood looking at it, this thing he had risked so much to own, this ordinary soil waiting for a road that had not come. And beside him, unexpectedly, was an old man. He had not heard him approach. The old man was simply there, seated on a flat stone, as though he had been waiting. He was very old, the face simplified by time until only the essential expression remained. It was patient, watchful. He had the hands of someone who had worked the land for 60 years. Vikram did not know him. The old man looked at the plateau and said, "Is this yours?" Vikram said, "Most of it." "Yes." The old man nodded and said, "I had land once, more than I needed." Vikram said, "What happened to it?" The old man said, "I kept it, all of it. I was very careful with it, very attentive, and one day I realized that I had tended my fields with more devotion than I had tended anything else in my life, that my land knew the pattern of my days better than my children did, that the soil had received more of my presence than the people who carried my name." He paused. Then he said, "A man can own the earth and be homeless. What a man accumulates can always be lost. What he gives genuinely, freely, without calculation, that is the only thing that stays." He stood slowly, with the care of a body that has learned its limits, and walked away into the afternoon haze. Vikram watched him go, until there was nothing to watch. He stood on that plateau for a long time. The valley below him was filling with the soft gold of late afternoon. His fields, the ones still standing, the ones the rain had not touched, caught the light the way they always had, indifferent to everything he had done in their name. Remember the question from the beginning about the voice that said, "What you have is never enough"? What Vikram heard standing on his plateau was not an answer that arrived from outside. It arrived from somewhere he had been avoiding for 18 months, from the space he had filled with numbers and plans and the noise of acquisition, so he would not have to sit quietly inside it and hear what it was telling him. He sold the plateau land. Not all of it enough. Enough to clear the worst of the debt. enough to release the pressure that had been building like water behind a stone. He did not get what it was worth. He had known he would not. He signed the papers and walked home through the village in the late afternoon with lighter hands than he had had in 2 years. That evening he cooked dinner. Not well, he had never been the one who cooked, but he made rice and dal and set the table. And when his 2 daughters came in from the garden, they stopped in the doorway and looked at him with expressions that broke something open in his chest and put it back together at the same time. He wrote to Arjun, not about the land or the debt. A letter that said only, "I understand why you left. I am not the same person I was when you went. Come home and find that out for yourself." Arjun came back 2 months later. He sat at the dinner table and passed the rice the way he always had and told a story about something at his uncle's workshop, and his younger sister interrupted him 3 times, and nobody minded. And Vikram sat at the head of the table and looked at this ordinary, irreplaceable thing and understood what he had nearly lost. Savitri, across the table, caught his eye. She did not smile. She looked at him with an expression that said, "I know, and I am still here. What a man accumulates can always be lost. What he gives genuinely, freely, without calculation, that is the only thing that stays." Now I want to speak to you directly. Perhaps you have never owned land. Perhaps your version of the Eastern Plateau is the extra project you took on when you were already stretched thin. The promotion you chased at the cost of the person waiting for you at home. The savings account you protected so carefully that the present slipped past you like a season you forgot to notice. Perhaps there is someone in your life right now who has told you quietly, in the way that people say true things when they no longer expect to be heard, "I cannot remember the last time you were here, and also here." Here is what this story holds. First, the cost of more is rarely paid in money. The real cost is paid in time, the only currency that cannot be earned back. Vikram lost fields in the flood. Fields recover. What he almost lost does not recover easily, and sometimes does not recover at all. Second, the things you are working so hard to provide are not what the people you love actually need from you. They need your presence, not your achievements, not your plans for their future. Your actual presence, imperfect and unhurried and genuinely there. Third, enough is a decision, not a condition. It was always there in the house, behind the stone wall, in the garden, in the sound of 2 daughters on the staircase. Enough is never somewhere ahead of you. You can decide that today, before this day is over. What a man accumulates can always be lost. What he gives genuinely, freely, without calculation, that is the only thing that stays. I want to ask you something. Think of a moment when you chose more over enough and what it cost you. Write it in the comments if you are willing. Not the whole story, just the moment. Because someone watching tonight may be standing at the same crossroads, and they need to know that others have stood there too. If there is someone in your life right now who is working so hard they have forgotten what they are working for, send them this story. Without explanation, just send it. Let it land where it needs to. And if these stories have ever held something you needed, if you come here because the world outside moves too fast and sometimes you need a voice that slows down, then stay close. Every story shared in this place is built for one purpose: to remind you that the most valuable thing you own is not measured in fields or money or any accumulation the world can name. It is measured in the people who are still at your table, who chose to stay.